Hey everybody, Annie Meller back again with Ivory Becker of Incite Strategies and Credit Score Pro AI. We today are going to dive into a topic that I know you're all familiar with, and that is Credit Karma. And why is that score maybe just not quite right?
Well, Credit Karma is what's known as a Vantage credit score. So when you are pulling a credit report for your borrower, you're pulling a FICO credit score. Most people out there are using Credit Karma because it's free, right?
Yeah.
That free credit score is a different algorithm, which is known as a Vantage score. That algorithm functions differently. The way it calculates the score that consumer sees is so different that sometimes you may even see up to 100-point difference between the score you pull and the score that consumer sees.
100 points? That's insane.
Yes, so it discounts certain information that the FICO scores don't. For example, with many of the FICO credit scores, when you pay a collection, it does not help improve the score. With a Vantage score, a paid collection has a lesser negative impact on the overall credit score.
Interesting. So, because I know there are other credit scoring models out there, and I don't think it's atypical to see sort of a spread, but it is shocking when they come and sit down and you pull that FICO, and again, it's not what they're expecting. How can you maybe set an expectation?
Sure. So when you're talking to your borrowers, I would say keep it simple. I would just explain to your borrower that there are different types of credit scores. And the credit score used by Credit Karma is known as a Vantage score, and it's not widely used in any space in lending.
Mm-hmm. What scoring models would be used in lending?
So in mortgage lending right now, what we're using is FICO Classic. Now stay tuned because we are going to be seeing some changes to that. But at the present time, what's widely used is FICO Classic. It's been that way for a very long time. In other areas of lending, like let's say auto loans, you are going to see other models used, like FICO 8, for example, or FICO 6. So really what's important to know is that there are different iterations. So you have the oldest versions of FICO all the way to the newest, which is FICO 10 and 10T. So that leaves variances in how those scores are assessed. It's similar with the Vantage credit score. And I'll give you a little history behind Vantage. The Vantage score was created in 2006 to rival the FICO score. And essentially, its goal is to be a better measurement of risk than what the FICO score is currently. And because it's meant to measure things differently, the scores themselves are different, right? And it does have multiple iterations as well. Of course, not as many as FICO because it's newer.
No, that makes sense. So I know when I go log into my bank account, it always says, check your credit. And what I see on there is that it might just be Experian or it might just be Equifax. And is that something that you could also prepare a borrower for to understand like where they're deriving that information from?
That's a great question. So the three credit bureaus are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, regardless of the bureau, they may be using a FICO score or a Vantage score. So to compound that conversation, your borrower is going to scroll down to the very bottom of the screen, and it's going to say whether it's a FICO score being used or a Vantage score being used. So the conversation is typically more about FICO versus Vantage than it is about Equifax versus TransUnion.
That's good to know. I guess as a real quick sidebar, why are there differences in those scores between, why would Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, why do they not all have the same score?
So the reason the scores are going to be different on all three credit bureaus is differences in information. So not every creditor has to report to the bureaus, right? They don't even have to report to one bureau.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Some creditors choose to report to one, some to two, and some to all three. So this difference can cause differences in credit scores.
Okay, no, that makes sense to me. All right, so getting back a little bit to the Vantage and the FICO, what is the difference between, because again, if they have a different credit score, they must be calculating it differently.
Sure. So they're looking at the weightings of things differently. For example, with the Vantage credit score, payment history is 41% of the calculation versus FICO, it's 35%. And utilization is 20% of the Vantage score, where utilization is 30% of the FICO score. And then the way that information is interpreted is different as well, right? We talked about collections as an example.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot to grasp to the average consumer who, I mean, I don't keep track of how these things are weighted, honestly. So it will be interesting to see if we make that shift in the lending sphere to consider VantageScore as maybe a primary calculation.
Right. I think to wrap it up, the most important thing to know is as long as your borrower has strong behaviors, things like a good payment history, low usage or low utilization of credit cards, and they have a good history of using credit, they're going to have a good credit score, whether it's a VantageScore or a FICO score.
Awesome. Well, this has been really great information, and hopefully it lets you walk away with a few more tools and how to discuss credit with your borrowers, especially as it comes to why is my credit score different. Well, thank you so much, Ivory, for coming in, teaching us today about how to have these conversations with borrowers when they have questions regarding their credit score. To learn more about credit, check out our other videos, and we will see you guys next time.